All right, everyone. Thanks so much for joining for another In Conversation. I am so excited to be chatting with Rabbi Sandra Lawson. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. I've been following you for a while. I love
Mhm.
your work. I love your message. So I'm glad we finally get to have a little
Yeah,
one-on-one.
yeah.
So you're in North Carolina?
Yeah, we're in Durham, North Carolina, a house that we bought, we moved in on September 8th.
Okay, okay.
So
I've
we're
spent quite a
yeah,
bit time in North Carolina, actually.
yeah. Where are you right now?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Oh, that's far, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right, the GST
Yeah.
side.
Yeah, on the other side, North Carolina is beautiful.
Yeah,
Every time I've gone there, I've done some work out there, but every time I've gone there, it's just been so beautiful. You can actually see the stars, which is very
yeah,
different from LA.
yeah, we have, when California has mountains and
Yeah.
oceans, it's smaller, but
Yeah,
yeah,
every place
so
has its pros and cons.
mhm. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I wanted to chat with you because I mean, we all see what's happening currently, and I'm
Mhm,
a real big advocate for. Oops, I knew that was going to
mhm,
happen
uh-oh.
too.
Mhm.
I know it's not sticking. Hold on, I'm a real big advocate for collective liberation.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I know I've mentioned this to you before
Mhm,
that specifically the Black and Jewish communities coming together is something that I'm super passionate about. And I
mhm,
know that you hold both identities. So
mhm.
I would just love to talk to you a little bit about why you specifically think those communities now in 2025 really need to start focusing on our collective work because
Mhm,
I am of the mindset we have a common enemy
mhm,
and we
mhm,
need to stop fighting each other.
mhm.
So
Yeah,
I just want
yeah.
to hear a little bit from you, especially as someone who's toggling both of those identities and seeing how much our communities used to be together and now they're kind of at odds, but we really should just turn around and be like, "Oh, that's who's trying to keep us from being together again." So I'm just going to let you wrap a little bit.
Um, yeah, so, first of all, I wanna say that, if we go back to the early part of the 20th century, I could go further back, but if you go to the early part of the 20th century with the founding of the NAACP,
Mhm.
and um, all of the events that happened up until the late '60s,
Yeah.
yes, there was a lot of collaboration between, Black folks, and Jewish folks who largely came here from Eastern Europe or from Europe, no, Eastern Europe. And then when you see folks fleeing Nazi Germany, and those folks coming over here who fleed, that horrific regime,
Yeah.
coming over here and seeing what's happening to Black folks. So those people, what I would say, are closer in memory to the Holocaust. And then
Yeah.
as we starts to move further away from that, and as Jews who came from Europe or Jews who benefit from white privilege, um, start to assimilate, want to assimilate, we see less of that. And I want to say that we do, as Jews, lift up Heschel and Prince, who Rabbi Prince, who spoke during King, and Rosenthal, Rabbi Rosenthal, whose synagogue was bombed, and all these other figures. And if I'm getting some names wrong, I'm along this conversation. I apologize ahead of time. And we do lift up those stories, and those stories are incredibly important. But we also leave out other stories that aren't lifted up.
Mm,
Like we talk a lot about the Jews that came to Selma. We don't talk about the Jews that were actually in Selma. Now, those
mm,
Jews who are in Selma and would I hope will soon be a historic synagogue are now speaking out verbally about what they did not do and why they did not do what they did, why they did not participate mostly in the civil rights movement because they had to live in those communities. And so,
yeah.
you know, and we don't talk about I got a message of earlier this year, maybe late last year, from someone whose rabbi was fired because basically, why are you spending so much time with Black folks and not with your own community? And
Wow.
that is a more common narrative than the stories that we uplift. Now, history is all about storytelling, and storytelling, wins. But what we're seeing right now. Um, it's sort of a continuation of that there are
Right.
Jews participating, and I would call this a modern day civil rights era or fight for our lives or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Um, and There are Jews on the front lines, Jews doing a lot of work, and there are also a lot of other Jews that are not. And if you listen to Ta-Nehisi Coates's interview with Ezra Klein, he said,
Mm-hmm.
"These are the coolest group of white folks I've ever seen," and I would also say that's probably the coolest group of white Jews I've also seen in my lifetime.
Yeah.
There's more people on our side of the aisle, I believe, than ever before in history.
Sure.
So, with all of that said, some other things have factored into why some people would say there's a decline in Black and Jewish folks' collaboration. And I'm not sure if that's accurate or not, but let's just go with that.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a narrative, then there's lots of narratives, but there's one narrative that racism plays a factor in that uh, Black people are more anti-Semitic than white folks, and there are people I
Mm.
have met that actually believe that, and it's not true.
Yeah.
Anti-Semitism exists throughout our country in the same way that racism exists throughout our country. It
Yeah.
holds no. You can be a Democrat and be racist. You could be a Republican and be racist. You could be anybody and be racist, and so you can be white and be anti-Semitic. You can also be Black and brown and anti-Semitic because anti-Semitism, its origins. Um, are tied to Christianity, but we live in a Christian-centric society, and so, there are many people out there because many people who are white and Jewish would like to demonize Black folks as
Yeah.
the boogie person, and Black people typically hold less power than white folks, believe that Black people who are Black and anti-Semitic are more than
Mm.
that, and people have quoted all kinds of ridiculous statistics to me that when you tear them apart mean absolutely nothing. But
Yeah.
what I say is that, yes, Black people are anti-Semitic, but no more Black people can be anti-Semitic, but not any more or less anti-Semitic than anybody else, and we don't hold power. Um, but one of the functions of anti-Semitism in a society is a cudgel, which is to divide. Jews have historically always been used as a division to pit groups against each other, to
Hmm.
whatever the people in power need Jews for. And you see that now, right now, Jews
Right.
are being
Used.
weaponized to
Yeah.
create divisions, you know, and and so that does create fear in the Jewish community, especially
Sure.
when you start to hear about pro-Palestinian protests on campus. Pro-Palestinian protests on campus does not necessarily mean anti-Jewish protests. And at the same time, anti-Israel sentiment, it is not that far to get to anti-Semitism. So
Mm.
you can be not supportive of the Israeli government and not be anti-Semitic. You can criticize the Israeli government and not be anti-Semitic, but there's so many steps, not that many steps to get you to
Yeah.
anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so one of the things that my, white Jewish siblings, I think can learn from Black folks is how to deal with anti-Semitism in a society that's anti-Semitic. Black folks know good and well racism in our society has never gone away.
Right.
And when we have learned to manage it,
Yeah.
we don't like it, but we have learned to recognize it, we understand when it evolves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and many of my white Jewish siblings have lived in an era of safety, believe that anti-Semitism has not existed, or it was, it was not systemic. It was more of an individual thing. And now many folks, probably since Pittsburgh or maybe sooner, are waking up to that. And instead of leaning into folks who are used to um, dealing with systematic biases or used to dealing with racism, instead of, making friends or being in relationships with Black folks, or maybe even being in relationships with queer people during the ACT UP movement in the 80s,
Yeah.
Jews have, for safety reasons, tend to remain insular instead of connecting with others,
It's a
and I
trauma
wrote
response. It's
oh,
a trauma
totally,
res
it's
yeah.
totally trauma, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. There's a couple of things that you said. I think that the problem that I've also seen is when it comes
mhm,
to specifically anti-Semitism and people
mhm.
saying, Black people are anti-Semitic, or they're pointing to that one
Oh,
representative of the
totally.
Black community. And we tend to do that in
Mhm.
general. We
Right,
always
right.
find the worst representative of our group to
Yeah,
point to be like, see, that's what I'm saying. And I wish
yeah,
that we would ignore that aspect of, because there's bad apples in every community, right?
correct.
Let's just be honest, right? And so when it comes to that, like, there are a lot of Black people I know that are doing bridge building work, specifically
Yeah,
with the
mhm,
Jewish community, but they're not as spotlit because we're in a culture that thrives on drama and
yeah,
thrives on negativity, and that's what feeds the algorithm.
yeah.
Also, that's why I'm
Oh,
always telling
totally,
people,
yeah.
get out and talk to people, have those conversations, talk one on one, face to
Mhm,
face, because you're never going to know who's on your side based
right.
on Instagram. You're only going to know who's against you. You're
Yeah,
only going to know
and
who's
social
against you.
media is the I was talking to some young college students this weekend, and who created their own Black Jewish student group, and
Nice.
there's a couple of Black Jewish folks in that group, and one of the things I said to them is social media is the worst place to have a conversation. It is. I mean, you can start it, you can, talk, but it is if you want to actually reach across difference, you need to pick up the phone or you need to go see somebody. It is not the best place to have complex conversations.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. There's
Yeah.
one thing I wanted to have you follow up on, because I found it
Mhm.
very interesting, and I completely agree with
Mhm, mhm.
when you said that anti-Semitism, like the roots really come from Christianity.
Yeah, yeah.
As someone who I am a Christian, I've been
Mhm,
very progressive in my faith, and I know a lot about the anti-Semitism, but I'd love
mhm,
for you
mhm.
to share the origins of that.
Yeah, so one of the best books I've ever seen, and it's thick. It's like got like biblical pages, like super thick. It's Constantine's Sword, and it was written, I believe, in the early '90s, maybe 2000. I'm not sure. But I read it in the early 2000s by a former Catholic priest who I believe was in Boston. Um, And, he was he was he his priesthood was, like, around, like, the Vietnam era, and then his own story is weaving in the book, and it's really good, and so that book unpacks a lot of the anti-Semitism beyond the belief that Christians had of how Jews killed Jesus, and his whole
Hmm.
thesis is that the Catholic Church was responsible for anti-Semitism, and he
Hmm.
backs it up with the things that he backs it up with. But, yeah, the origins of anti-Semitism completely start with the Catholic Church.
Hmm.
But just like racism has evolved over time, today anti-Semitism does not need to be connected to a religious theology.
Hmm. Interesting. That's really interesting. I wanna pick up that book now. I'm like,
Yeah.
"Have I seen that?
Yeah.
Have I seen that book?"
Yeah. Well, in his book, he doesn't talk about there's no such thing as anti-Semitism on the left or right. It was just anti-Semitism. And today
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
we have, and basically the anti-Semitism that mostly exists on the left, I would say, is not tied to a religious
A
theology.
religious, sure,
Right.
sure. Yeah, sure. And speaking of how we're seeing it kind of across the board, and we talk about the
Mhm,
horseshoe theory, which I'm sure you've heard of,
mhm,
what do you feel like we need to do collectively to try and combat that? Because I feel like, one, like you said, people can't have conversations over social media. So what are the next steps in order to figure out how to have this collective care and this collective empathy to combat anti-Semitism, to combat racism,
right.
to fight step and stand up against the regime? I know it's a big question,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
everyone
Yeah,
has
yeah.
ideas that I think that are important. So I would love to hear what your views are on that.
Yeah, so today today, I would say, tomorrow I might say something different, is that,
we're
um
all we're
so
all there. We
yeah, I
switch
know.
daily. You have to. I get it.
Um, so I really do believe this because I've had so many conversations with people because of social media. And I'm on social media, you're on social media, we've existed, you and I'm making a large assumption here, but we existed in a world before social media existed. And that's not true for some people today.
Sure, sure.
And but I've seen social media change, and
Mhm.
particularly when capitalism and money got involved. Now it's about keeping you on their platforms and the algorithms that find out what you like. Like today, my algorithm has a lot of bees and octopuses and animals.
Oh,
This
you
is
went the whole
crazy. I
nature
started
route. I know.
right, right.
I've done that. I've done that social media cleanse before. I know exactly what that is.
Um, but our social media is designed. Again, I am not I'm not a scientist. I have no interest in understanding the deep workings of social media platforms, but I believe that they are, they are feeding us a narrative that we have less in common.
Yeah. Yeah.
That, you turn on social media and you see these weird things and like cats, people eating dogs or whatever that thing that Trump said, the immigrants were doing. I shouldn't say that because I don't want to spread that narrative, but,
Right.
um, and so people are like, what is going on? And so we're being told this narrative that, and also the news too, that we have less in common,
Mhm.
and the media and social media are not giving us complex narratives.
Yeah.
Um, and you have people out there telling stories or what they believe to be truths about Black people, queer people, and they don't know any of those people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, to tell you a story, during the previous Trump administration, there was this local bar, Susan, that my wife and I would go to after we worked out. The bar had to be right after the gym, so we'd go to the gym to go get a beer. And I remember this guy, like he was a nice man. He was coming off a work site, and he had all the symbols and flags that told me everything I needed to know about his politics, like all
Right.
of it. And he
Right.
came in there and everybody's like looking at him. And so I sat next to him. I started talking to him. I'm the only Black person in there. And then when he left, they were like, "How could you talk to him?" And I said, "Because everything that I was worried about was on his body. Everything that I
Mm.
was, worried about I already knew where he
Yeah.
was, so I wasn't gonna start a conversation with him and then get smacked in the face with some kind of bigotry. So we could
Right.
just talk, we could just drink and have a beer." And we both he said, "I was a little worried coming in here, but you're really nice." I said, "Yeah." And I said, "I believe a lot of things would be solved if people just sat down and had a beer or whatever they like to do and have a conversation." And so I wasn't trying to change his politics, and he wasn't
Right.
trying to change mine. We just were two people sitting down. I don't know what we talked about, but we just talked.
Yeah, yeah, it's all about the humanity, and I think
Yeah.
that I was reminded the other day, I don't know if you know this quote, but that Martin Luther King said that someone told a lie one day
Yeah.
about Black people,
Yeah.
right? And then they just
Mhm,
ran
mhm.
with it.
Right,
But
right,
that specific sentence, "Someone told a lie one day," is
right.
really how it is about everybody.
Yeah, yeah.
You hear that one thing, and then you automatically create all of these narratives, you have
Oh,
this
yeah, yeah.
fear, and you're just like, "Well, these people," and it's like, "Well, do you know any of those people?"
Right, right.
No,
But the
you
and
just
right, yeah.
heard something. Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
and then whenever we dehumanize anyone in our society, what do we go to? We go to the bathrooms. Like, the bathroom is the thing, but that is the most every human person has to relieve themselves, and when you take access to public restrooms where you were telling everybody that this person is less than human. They did it to
Mm,
Black people, they did it to queer people, they've done it now they're doing it done it with, now they're doing it with trans people too. Like, how are you gonna tell somebody they
it
cannot
was the
use a public
bathroom.
restroom?
Yeah, or
You have
deny
to
them
do
water. Like, I think
right.
about I've told the story before with my dad because he grew up in Mississippi in Jim
Mhm,
Crow,
mhm.
born in 1944, and was getting gas from a gas station, and he went
Wow.
to a water fountain and had a gun pulled on him because it was the wrong water fountain,
Right,
and he was
right.
like, "I just spent my money paying for
Yeah,
gas, and I can't even get a drink of water
right, right.
because of the
Yeah,
color of my skin." Yeah, it's wow.
when you think about buses before they were desegregated, we tell this story that there was like this white line, there was black line, but that line was movable on buses. So
Mm,
you could get on the bus and actually be behind the colored line, literally, and then more white people would come on, and then the thing would move. But they were paying money to sit on that bus,
yeah,
and sometimes kicked off the bus, or have to stand. At the end of the work, but they were paying the same amount of money as a
yeah,
white passenger.
nothing different, nothing
Yeah, and so
different.
when people say that they believe that if I make more money or more professional, that somehow I will be treated better. You might be treated better because of capitalism, but you're
Yeah.
still going to experience racism because racism has never cared about how much money you make. It
Sure.
may give you
Sure.
more access, but it's not going to make it may give you more access and closer proximity
Mhm.
to white culture, but it is not. You're never going to be seen as whatever they think white people are seen as.
Right. But I think that that's evident, like, for example, in the entertainment industry,
Mhm,
you know,
mhm.
when you see Black artists or just people of color artists and athletes, when they start to speak up, they get the
Oh,
just shut up
totally.
and sing, just shut up and dribble the ball. Like,
Right.
we don't care what you have
Mhm,
to say. You're getting paid
mhm.
to
Right.
entertain me. So yeah,
Exactly,
I think that,
exactly.
and
Mhm.
they're getting paid millions, like
Yes.
like
Right,
but
right.
there's still this level of hierarchy that it doesn't
Mhm,
matter how
mhm.
much you make, like you said, you are still in a place in the
Yeah,
caste system, right, in
yeah.
this country.
Mhm,
Um, so that's one thing that I wanted to chat with you about. But now I want to talk to you a little bit about interfaith, because
mhm,
I
mhm,
think that that's something I'm also very passionate
mhm,
about.
mhm.
And specifically now, when we're seeing this rise of Christian nationalism that is harmful to everybody because they don't believe in pluralism, they don't believe in multiculturalism. What can different faith backgrounds do to push back against this?
So, I think, by speaking up, I mean, there's really, like, they are pushing a particular Christian narrative. It's not
Yeah,
new. I mean, it's not new at all. It just
sure.
has the power of the White House and a lot of people in power. And those folks who subscribe to that on some degree are being used. I'm not trying to say that they're passive participants, but they are being used,
Yeah.
and their vulnerabilities are played on, and their biases that they already have are being played with or played on. But I think that there are a lot of people of all faiths who are pushing back. Um, and I had a staff meeting with my staff this morning about, you know, being more what we can physically do to combat some of this as faith leaders.
Mhm.
And um that, there's it's just that, I when I did not watch the Charlie Kirk funeral, but I've seen clips of it because I
Yeah.
live in the United States.
Yeah.
And there's it's sickening actually. And what's really
Yeah.
interesting is to see a lot of language, uses of things that came out of the Black experience being co-opted by white
Mm.
folks,
Mm.
and used, against us in a way. I don't know if you've seen that clip of, I don't know who she is. She's some little white lady preaching. She sounds like a Black preacher. She talks about, I can't remember the reverend's name who started the Target boycott, but
Oh,
the
Jamal,
way
yeah,
her
I did a
Yeah.
response video to that. Yeah,
Oh,
that
you did?
really,
Okay.
yeah, it
Um
really, whew, yeah,
Yeah, and I can't. I've only seen little clips of it. I'll look for yours, but
yeah,
the way she's talking in that video, and that's true for a lot of white entertainers. They're the way they speak and the way they talk is not like it's not some unique skill. It's them imitating what they think
right.
Black people do.
Right, right, right. I mean, we see that, we've seen that forever,
Yeah, yeah,
specifically
yeah.
in music industry, but I think in the church, it's interesting to
Mhm,
see, the mannerisms, the vernacular, the dynamic of the
mhm.
voice that is it is very co-opted from the
Right.
Black church, which is interesting because in what she was saying, she was condemning the name the Black church
Yes.
and
Right.
saying how, well, what is a Black church? We're not,
Okay.
we're one in the body of Christ. It's like, but do you even know the history of why the Black church was created?
Right, and
Which is
does she
what my
even look at the
response was.
audience? Does she
Yeah,
even look at the audience she's talking to? No, and also
right.
these some I don't know how I don't know how old that person is, uh, and, but many of these folks say these things, and they not even don't even seem to be aware that there's no Black or brown people, or very few
Yeah,
Black or brown people in the room.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah.
whiteness is so normal eyes, like, that's the norm. Something
Yeah.
odd is, a room full of Black people or brown
Yeah.
people. That's something to
Yeah.
be feared.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's I had somebody made that comment as well. It's like,
Mhm.
well, has she looked out in her congregation? And is it
Right.
not weird to her that she's only speaking to a
There
specific
might be one, but
demographic?
that's just it. If it's just one, there's always a tipping point, and there's even a book about this
Right.
somewhere about tipping point of integration. So there might be a few black or brown folks in there, and that's fine. That to her probably feels very integrated.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's true.
but
That's
I
true.
don't know. And I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of who that preacher is unless I have to.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure she's a preacher. Like,
You're fine. You're fine to not. Well, before we wrap up, one thing I
yeah.
always like to ask people I have a conversation with, because we're so used to just seeing all the doom and gloom, we're seeing
Mhm.
a lot of negativity, and it's hard. But what's bringing you hope these days?
I play music.
Yeah, same. That's my escape too. How do you use your music? How do you use your music in times like this? Because I know
Music.
music is a great healing force.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I write songs about my experiences. I write songs about other people's experiences, and I play them. And it's never going to be my career, and it's something I'm okay at, and I try to get better at it. But it brings me joy, and that's all that really matters, and that's what art is for. But I play music with a bunch of people, most of them white men. I have no idea what their politics are, and I don't care. I have found out what some of them are, and they're on my side. But we're just a bunch of people because music is out of here. You're getting to know people. They
Sure,
all
sure.
know I'm a rabbi, like, it's because that's what I use, and then actually from some of this, I have found other Jews that didn't wanna tell anybody they were Jewish,
Mm,
or didn't publicly say, like, I was on a stage once at a songwriters thing with this guy. I've known him for a few years now just from playing music, and, he said I made him think of something publicly. He was on the microphone, I made him think of something that he hadn't done since his bar mitzvah. I had no idea, but he was Jewish, and that was his way of telling everybody he was Jewish. I was like, "Oh, cool." Um, but, I think that, like, music has always been like, you can't have civil rights or protests or any national movement in our society without music, which is one thing I think
sure.
is so funny about the these folks that hold power right now. Is they don't have any culture like that. Like, they wanna, like, okay, so, like, Lee Greenwood, I'm just using an example. I don't mean any disrespect, because I remember when the song came out. It's a nice song. I don't know if when he wrote the song, if he had it intended for it to be used in this way, but he's making money from it now. I hope
Yeah,
he's making money from it now. But they don't have, like, in order for them to lift up a music, they have to go back to somebody who had credit, their parents' generation.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then they get mad when some artist doesn't share the same politics. I'm like, "Why are you surprised? Why?" And then they're like, "Well, they shouldn't share their politics." I mean,
Right.
but what brings me joy is music. I like to talk to people. I like to talk
Mhm.
to young people because I do feel like they might save us one day.
Yeah.
Um, I write a lot, as and you know this, and I'm fortunate that I have access and skills for creative outlets, and I can
Yes.
say the things I need to say in other ways without going nuts. And then I also go to the gym every morning and lift heavy things and put them down. And so that's that's the other thing.
That's the thing. But you're also training in case
Yes.
training in case dot dot dot.
Yes.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, before we wrap up, can you tell everyone a little bit about Carolina Jews for Justice and the work that you're doing
Oh,
over there?
yeah. So Carolina Jews for Justice is a social justice organization, a statewide North Carolina social justice organization that advocates with the ideas we're all created in the image of the divine. I'm pausing for a minute because I have a board retreat coming up in which we will introduce our new strategic plan for the Jewish year 5786. I wouldn't really call it a plan. I would call it a framework for it because it's just a year. I took this job in June,
Mm,
and been working to um, make a more concrete system so that we can grow, and then that the our new strategic framework for what we will be doing will be launching. So I really can talk about it, but we still will always advocate for all folks in North Carolina. We just do it through Jewish values, and this particular historic moment has caused us to make some tweaks in that.
sure.
And we have a lot of interfaith partners, and Yeah, yeah.
I love it. No, that's great. That's wonderful. I'll
Yeah.
definitely link that in the notes for this.
Yeah,
Thank you
yeah.
so much for taking
Thanks
the
for having
time to
me. This
chat
was
with me.
fun.
Yes, this was so
Yeah.
fun. We'll do it again
Yeah.
soon because there's not going to
Alright.
be a shortage of things to talk about.
I
So,
know.
all right. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Okay.
Take care, Rabbi
Yeah.
Sandra. Bye.
Alright, bye-bye.